conference will now be recorded.
Early, get a couple of things talked about early, and then we'll jump into a couple of PowerPoints. I have a PowerPoint on mental health and EMS that I'm going to do before we start the class. I like to do it. I'm a big advocate of mental health and EMS just because of the background I've had in this job. So we'll do that. First thing we're going to talk about is this crap. So this is the Nevada State EMS licensure page. You can go on Google. You can try to type in their big URL. If you go on Google and just type in Nevada State EMS, you're looking for one that says image trend on it. And whenever you first click on it, it'll pull up a page like this. Once you get this page pulled up, I'll need you to create an account. Once you create an account, there's a tab on the left side that says applications. Not issued applications, just applications. You'll click on that tab that says applications. When you click on the tab that says applications, at the very bottom, there's there's one that says ambulance attendee. What's the word that starts with a B? Provisional ambulance attendee's license. If you read the description below it, you'll know that you're on the right one because it'll say if you're in an EMS program and you're currently in class, you need to fill this out. So before you can start doing your clinical rides, you have to have that license submitted and approved. I'm going to strongly advise and suggest that you get that done this week because typically when they have one of these classes, it takes them a couple of weeks to go through and approve everybody. And we'll be releasing folks here in a few weeks to start riding along and getting hours done for clinicals. So the quicker you get that done, the quicker you get approved, the quicker you can start doing clinicals. If you don't do that and you don't get your clinical hours, you cannot pass the class. So try to get that done this week. The first couple of weeks of this class, you get inundated with a lot of stuff with the MyBrady Lab and this and paperwork and all that stuff. After that, it gets a little bit easier, but this is kind of needs to be on top priority here within the next, I would say, week. If you have time this weekend, just sit down tonight. It only takes a couple of minutes. It's not a very long process, but you just need to sit down, knock it out. That way it gets sent off to the state. The state has to go through. There's only a few people in the state office that approves these. So when we have a class, we're not the only one in the state having a class. Winnemucca is doing a class right now. Great Basin's always doing a class. So whenever they have a bunch of applications come in at the same time, it takes a little while for them to get them all approved. When me and Becca first moved out here from the state of Georgia, she didn't get her license for 6 months. So just keep that in mind. They have gotten significantly better over the last couple of weeks or the last couple of months since they hired on a couple more. So I would get this done as quickly as possible. So on to the next. This little packet of papers that I handed out. So it starts at the beginning. Part of this class, when you do your clinicals, we're going to have you write a chart for your clinical times and your patient contacts that you have. That's what this is for. It's a template to do a narrative. We're not going to sit you down in front of a computer and have you go through our entire charting system and learn how to do that. That's a pain in the butt. But you will have to write a narrative for your interactions with that patient. It's to get you familiar with that system. It's to get you familiar with what that looks like. The number one killer for EMS personnel is your charting. It will get you put in jail. It will get you in a lot of hot water. So this is a way to save you from getting in trouble, is learning how to do good charting. Same thing if you progress through, you go into the hospital, you work as a nurse, whatever. If you do not chart appropriately, you will end up in a bad place. So that's what this is for. It's called the SOAP template. There's a couple of different ways that you can do it, but it's just the easiest for me. And so that's generally what I use more of like a timeline template, but I've been doing it for a little while. This is kind of easy for people to learn. Radio reports. As we progress through the class, your radio reports are kind of what you call in, or what you call in route to the hospital. So Becca will talk about that in our next class, but this is just kind of a template to go off of that and how to do that. These these two papers right here are going to be your best friends for the next few months. So these are your trauma and medical assessment forms. Okay, these trauma and medical assessment forms are going to become your absolute worst nightmare. So everything that we do is going to follow these forms in some manner. So even for somebody like me and Becca that's been doing this for a decade, I still follow this to a degree. This kind of gave me a good baseline when I first started, and now I kind of do a modified version of this when I'm going through. I talk to people a little bit differently, and I kind of do things not completely organized like this, but I use something similar when I do my patient assessments. There's one for trauma, there's one for medical. Another big benefit to these two things are your national registry test. When you go to take your national registry, years ago when we took our national registry, you actually had to be tested out on these papers. And so part of your national registry test, you had to go in and sit with a proctor and then give you like a little scenario, and you'd have to spill off these freaking sheets word by word, and it was really stupid and aggravating. But now when it comes to the testing online, they use a similar format to test you. So when you get your when you go to test, they'll give you like a scenario. So you got a 30-year-old male that passed out on the floor. You walk in, he's unconscious, his airway's patent. What do you do next? And if you look right here, there's like ABCs. Kind of go down your little chart. That's what it's looking for. It's looking for this same kind of algorithm. And so this is how National Registry tests. Learn these sheets, practice on your family, your mama, your daddy, your uncle, your dog, I don't care. But learn these sheets, because as we go through scenarios in class, we'll use these sheets as kind of a hard template to do our patient assessments and stuff in class. And then this last sheet right here is kind of a freebie from us. This is what we were talking about in our last class when we were talking about doing the test prep stuff. That's what this is. This is all test prep stuff. So up at the top, the online testing platforms, EMT prep, medic test, all that stuff. That's the ones that you pay for, that you can go on and start taking like mock test on. I would wait a couple of weeks. I wouldn't really be so worried about jumping into it today. But here in a couple of weeks, we're going to really encourage you to pay for these and start using these, because they're super, super helpful. Like I said before, I used them for my EMT, advanced EMT, paramedic. Becca used them. Calvin's smart enough, he don't have to use them, but the rest of us dum-dums have to use stuff like this to try to get through. They work fantastic. They're really, really helpful. They really get you in the mindset of taking those like really big, extravagant tests and just going through the test fatigue and getting used to taking a 2-hour test. So I would use them. The video resources down here at the bottom, these are some like YouTube resources that you can use. The crash course. I love crash course. They're like little cartoon characters. They're freaking funny. I use that through my paramedic because, again, I'm a dum-dum. A&P kicked my butt, but that helped me out a lot. Kahoots, we'll use that a lot in here. I know our last class was a young crowd. They all freaking hated / love Kahoots because they all did it in high school. You are a little bit of an older group. I can say that because I'm older too. But we'll use that a lot. It's fun. We'll do stuff like that, Jeopardy, a couple of different things. And then social media accounts, if you have Facebook, Instagram, stuff like that, down there at the bottom, the pre-hospitalist, the paramedic coach is that guy that's got that really weird list thing. Kind of annoys me, but he's really smart. But they're really, really good. So use those resources for anything that you're having a hard time with. Cool.
The provisional license is asking for an education institution name and then the course number.
Yeah, if is Lander County in there?
Lander County is here, but
Okay.
do you want me to just repeat this here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can just put Lander County EMS in there.
And then the course number.
And then the course ID number is going to be right there in the top right hand corner.
Thank you.
I don't know, but Kim should have it on the sign-in sheet. All right. And then this right here is going to be our fun. So as medical professionals, there's only a couple of things that I'm like super stringent on, because there's a couple of things that you can do that can kill the crap out of somebody, and I don't want you to do that. And that's medications. So knowing medications, knowing dosages, knowing when to give them, when not to give them, that is by far one of the most important parts of your job. If you do not know these medications, you can 1000% kill the crap out of somebody. As an EMT, the amount of medications that you can give is limited. As you progress through, like going from EMT to advanced EMT, you gain about 15 medications that you can give. And then going from advanced EMT to paramedic, you gain about 60. So I have my hands on about 70 different medications that I can give. So I have to know these, and it's a lot. But if I can learn 70, y'all can learn like 10, right? So part of this is going to be a grade, and you're going to love me for this because this was my idea, so don't yell at Becca about it. So the first couple of pages in here are going to be medications, all the medications that you can give. Activated charcoal is not one that you're going to see very often. We still carry it. We don't use it. It's been sitting on an ambulance for a while. Nobody really uses it anymore. But it's still in y'all's list. But glucose, activated charcoal, aspirin, epinephrine, nitroglycerin, all of these medications are in here. As part of a grade, hold on. I got to figure out the date because I forgot. February 28th. Y'all have class, right? I think that's the date. Okay.
It's a Saturday.
Okay. So February 28th, which gives you 26 days, 25 days. I will have everybody in this class rewrite these medications. I don't care what you write them on. You can write them on poster cards. You can write them on pieces of paper, notebook paper, whatever. And they will be turned in for a grade. Just the medications. Okay? So back here in the back, like where it tells you about the different injections, IV, IM, subcutaneous, all that. I don't care about none of that. The generic name, trade name, like you don't have to copy any of that. But I have given you the answer to this test by handing you this packet. But every medication from the activated charcoal all the way back to the Narcan needs to be rewritten on some sort of piece of paper and then be turned in for a grade. That tells me that you have been given these medications, you've looked at these medications, and then when you get on the back of my ambulance and you tell me that you've never seen them, I can call you a dirty little liar. Cool. It sounds like a lot. It's honestly the best thing that I can do to help you try to learn these is to put your hands on them and rewrite them. Because if you give somebody, let's say nitro, one of the medications you can give is nitro. It has to be prescribed to that person, but you can give nitro to somebody. Well, if their blood pressure is 70/40, and you're like, well, your chest hurts, I'm going to give you this nitro. You just killed the crap out of them. And that talks about that in here, right? So you have to know when, why, and why not to give these medications. So February 28th, it's a Saturday. It's one of our Saturday classes. Everybody should turn in a list of their medications that they rewrote. I'll grade them and I'll give them back to you. I'm not gonna keep them because I'm probably not gonna be able to read half of them. So I'll grade them and give them back to you. So write them in whatever helps you. That way you can study them later on. When I was learning medications, I just used like poster cards. That way I could like write the name on one side and then write all the description on one side. That way if somebody held up the name for me, I could try to like name off all the crap for it, right? It helps you learn. So any questions about any of that? Beautiful. All right. Now we're gonna get the fun stuff started. Excuse me. Okay. Yes.
I made this bet with the last EMT class. If any one of you can finish a thing of activated charcoal without throwing up, you can put an MBA in my notes.
I'm gonna record it though, just so you know. Not the MPA thing, because I don't think that you can make it to the MPA thing. But, all right, so this is the first thing we're gonna talk about. I'm a big advocate of mental health. So, like I talked about in our last class, I've been doing this for almost a decade. I started out as a volunteer firefighter. Actually, I started out as a wildland firefighter for the state of Georgia. Moved over, started being a volunteer firefighter. Went full-time as a structured firefighter. Realized I can make a lot more money doing the same thing on an ambulance. So I swapped over to the ambulance. I worked in the city of Atlanta through COVID and post-COVID. The year after COVID, the city of Atlanta was the most violent it's been since the early 90s COVID pandemic. So we saw a lot of violence. We saw a lot of death, a lot of really young people dying. It was rough. And one thing that I learned when I was going through this was nobody really cared. We were always holding 40 or 50 911 calls waiting on the ambulances, and we could never really keep up. And so, you know, Becca, for instance, ran a four-year-old that got shot on Thanksgiving in the head. She was dead, you know, there was nothing they could do about it. They tried, took her to the hospital, got her into the ER, dropped her off, still covered in, I'm sure, spots of blood from this 4-year-old. Supervisor was like, sucks to suck, we got more calls, keep on rolling. And you load up your ambulance and keep going. So when I got away from that system, I got into the mental health aspect of this stuff. I am a black cloud. Everybody will tell you I'm a black cloud. I've got 2 certificates from the city of Atlanta that says I ran more cardiac arrests in the city of Atlanta 2 years in a row than anybody else. So I've seen my fair share of stuff that's not fun. And in that time, it's kind of given me an innate opportunity to share that information with others and hopes that you don't end up on the backside of a really bad situation. My dad's been doing this for almost 40 years, and he's an old grumpy guy. He's worked fire, he's worked EMS, he's worked PD, and he's just an old grumpy guy. And I asked him one day, because I rode on an ambulance with him in Atlanta at one point. He was actually my full-time partner. And I asked him one day, I was like, do you think you'd be so pissed off if somebody just sat you down 20 years ago and was like, guy? And he was like, no, probably not. Fair enough, right? So this job can really take it out of you. And so I like to start these classes out with this, just because there's going to be times, whether it's in your clinicals, whether it's what you get out on your own, that you're going to see things that the human body wasn't really meant to see. And you're going to do things that you didn't really think that you were meant to do. So there's ways to work around it. There's ways to identify that it's happening. So I'm going to try to help hope and pray that y'all don't become all grumpy and pissed off at the world. So our objectives for today, we're going to describe some leading causes of mental health emergencies in EMS, some signs and symptoms of burnout. If you've never heard of burnout, you'll meet some burnout, and you'll know it when you meet So we're going to discuss some ways to prevent burnout, and then discuss ways your coworkers and yourself can help in time of mental health crisis within your service. So what makes me qualified to teach this? So about a year, well, I guess it's been about 2 years now, I took at the time, the service that I was incorporated into was kind of making an initiative and a push to really start worrying about the mental health aspect. We had a couple of incidences kind of close to that system that really hit a lot of people hard. And so we all got together and built a group of people that kind of had the same mentality of like, what can we do differently to where we don't end up with a bunch of pissed off, burnout paramedics in a couple of years. So we all sat down and did they call it CISM. So it's a critical incident stress management class. So I took this class. It was a 27-hour week-long class. And all it really did was kind of give me a little bit of tools to try to help people on a basic level without going to get a master's degree in psychology. Try to help people kind of work through some of the stuff that they've seen not long after they've seen it. And then, of course, recommend them or refer them off to more help if needed. And what we found out was, after years of studying that they've done in first responders, is statistically, as a first responder, you're more likely to see death and destruction in a 20-year span more than an average military person. So for years, they've talked about PTSD in the military, but for years, they've talked about just shoving it away and getting rid of it when it comes to first responders, because you signed up for it, right? You're getting a paycheck, you signed up for it, and you're supposed to deal with it and move on. And they over the last, I would say, probably 5 to 10 years, they've kind of started trying to push away from that and really started trying to deal with these issues. And so it's nice to see, because now people are getting so mad all the time. So when we talk about burnout, it's everybody's favorite coworker. It's the guy that shows up every day. You know, it doesn't matter if it's grandma that fell in the bed or fell on the floor at 2 a.m. or, you know, the cardiac arrest that comes out, you know, on the 30-year-old that collapsed in the middle of a baseball game, right? They just don't want to be there. They don't want to run the 911 calls. They hate everything when they show up to work. And there's kind of like this cycle that you show up to, right? When you first get into this, you're all excited and you're eager to go and you want to run all the calls. And then you get into a system, maybe they're, you know, running a little heavy like we were in Atlanta. You start getting tired, you start losing your patience, you start getting angry, and you go back to work. Well, you're running calls all day long. I can tell you, I ate my fair share of roller hot dogs from the QT in Atlanta. It's not healthy, right? So you have poor health. I was drinking 3 or 4 energy drinks a night. I don't drink any anymore, but I was drinking 3 or 4 energy drinks a night, and you know, it's just bad. I was sleeping about 5 hours a night because of where I lived at, my travel time. I was getting about 5, maybe 6 hours on a good night of sleep, right? And I was just feeling myself getting progressively more angry with that system. And so I had to leave, right? So we're trying to avoid that. And it just turns into a big cycle, and then you get down here at the bottom and you're just tired, right? And so what we're seeing now, which is, it's kind of prevalent all over the country, is just such a shortage in EMS and first responders. And a lot of that has to do with this, right? Like, nobody wants to see dead people and pick up dead people all day long and then go eat roller hot dogs and then not get no sleep and then turn around and do this big old cycle. They're like, well, frick, I can go out here and dig dirt and make twice what I make out here doing this. They go out there and dig dirt. I don't blame them. But we're trying to avoid that, right? Because some of us still love this stuff. So, scene safety. What does scene safety mean, right? In this class, you're going to learn scene safety is just this big progressive word that's like PD has to be everywhere all the time. Or, I'm sorry, Sheriff's Department has to be everywhere all the time. They get mad if I call them. We had a couple of deputies in here last time, and I would say PD, and they're like, we're the Sheriff's Department. I don't care. It's all the same guy. Yeah, freaking, you got a badge. You like donuts. I don't care. So, scene safety goes further than that, right? If you're not mentally aware of what's going on, your scene's not safe. If you're running off exhaustion, If you're running off a poor diet, if you're running off burnout, your scene's no safer than anybody else's, right? I have made some of my biggest mistakes in this career doing that exact thing, right? Not thinking about what's going on, not cognitively being aware of my surroundings, and I make a mistake. Luckily, the mistakes that I've made have been benign enough to where I'm still here to talk about it, but they happen. If you are in this job long enough, you're going to make mistakes. Try not to make big ones. Right? So, suicide in EMS, death attributed to suicide in EMTs is about 5.2%, which is about 3% higher than the general public. Right? Reports show that firefighters and EMTs have an increased suicidal ideation rate, suicidal plan rate, and a suicidal attempt rate. Right? So there's got to be something behind that statistic, right? There's a reason why everybody's all pissed off and burnt out, and people are thinking about offing themselves, right? It's not fun. Nobody wants to talk about, the big nasty S word, but it's serious in EMS. They have it's really cool, and I didn't really know about it until I come out here, ironically enough, but they have a group of people that ride around and do like what they call it, the memorial ride, and they go around and lay wreaths down for all the first responders that's died over the last year. It's really cool, but they do include some of these suicides in there, right? So it's real, and people have to talk about it. So there's like this big graph, right? When you first get into EMS, everybody loves it. You want to see the cool things, you want to do the cool things. That's the reason why I said when y'all started, or what I said in the last class is like, I'm not going to expose you to something that you don't need to be exposed to before you have to, right? It's because I don't want you to be in that position. It's not fun. I promise you, the cool things are going to be there. They're going to come with time, but the cool things don't have to be there before they have to. But you get into this, you love it, right? So much fun. And then you get down here at the freaking bottom of this, right? And you're just tired. There's a lot of stuff that leads up to this, right? So poor leadership is a big one, right? You see it all over the place. If your boss sucks, you hate your job, right? Stressful situations, well, that's the name of this game, right? We didn't get into this to freaking mosey around and just hang out and go watch basketball and do the parades, right? We do that stuff too, but it's also, we get put in a lot of stressful situations, right? We might not show it. I can tell you, I am absolutely probably one of the best people in the world. When it comes to a stressful situation, you won't see it on my face. I'm still stressed. I got a little squirrel that runs around in my head freaking out too, right? So irregular hours, right? So here in Lander County, we work 96 hours straight. So there's been days where I've gotten 2 hours of sleep in 48 hours. And there's been days where I hadn't run a call in 2 days, right? It really messes with your sleeping habits. And then abusive patients. Out here is actually, it's a nice change of pace coming out here because like I like to tell people, in Atlanta, we just had a bunch of dickheads and then would occasionally have a nice patient. Out here, it's kind of the opposite. Most of our patients are nice, and every once in a while we run into a dickhead. So out here, the abusive patients things it's a lot less likely, but it's still there, right? You can fight patients. That's cool, man. I like to wrestle every once in a while. My back don't appreciate it, but really what that means is like, you walk into somebody's house and they catch an attitude with you. Well, you call me. Why are you mad at me? I'm here because you called. I didn't call you and ask to come over, right? Well, that kind of stuff kind of gets to you after a little while, and it kind of leads to this kind of downfall. So we had on top of Becca's situation, we had ironically enough, a supervisor in the city of Atlanta. His name was Armand. Super nice guy, one of the nicest guys you meet. Armand had a master's degree in psychology, which makes this story so much more ironic. So Armand had a master's degree in psychology, and in Atlanta, we would have like doctors ride with us. We would have aspiring med students ride with us. We just had all kinds of random people that would ride with us. And one night he had a EMS, they call them EMS fellows, which is just a physician that kind of follows around with EMS. They kind of help build protocols, different things like that. And this EMS fellow was riding with Armand, and a crew brought in a pediatric cardiac arrest to one of the hospitals up there. And this EMS fellow looked at Armand and was like, hey, like, how do y'all deal with this? And Armand was like, what are you talking about? And she was like, well, like this crew just brought in this 1-year-old, you know, cardiac arrest. Like they're still, like the kid's dead. Like they had to deal with this. Like, what do y'all do for these crews? And he was like, man, I have 50 911 calls holding right now. They can get in the ambulance and go pick up grandma. Maybe they'll forget about it. Right? Well, he had a master's in psychology, right? Like he's supposed to be the mental health guy, but that was the mentality, right? That's not fun. It's not fun. We hate it. I hate it. Drives me nuts. But that's the mentality, and that's still the mentality, and that just happened a few years ago to, you know, where I was working. So it's still pretty prevalent. A lot of people are trying to get rid of it, but it's still there. So what are you kind of looking for when it comes to this burnout thing, right? So you get those employees that show up every day, just eager to work. They do all the extra things, and then all of a sudden they start showing up to work and they just kind of sit around on the couch. They don't want to do anything anymore, right? The super nice people that are always jolly and happy are walking into work pissed off and don't want to be there, right? They kind of changing routines, right? Like they would always show up 30 minutes early and now they're showing up 30 minutes late, right? Like that's the kind of people that you're looking at to try to hone in on and try to figure out what's going on with these people, right? And that's just some of the precursors. There's a ton of them, right? Like, you know, alcoholism shows face from the outside, and you can see it if you pay attention. I've seen it in a lot of people. I was an alcoholic for many years. She'll tell you. She's the reason why I stopped drinking. So, and she could tell you I would go home at 6 o'clock in the morning and pour some Tito's, and that's how I would go to bed every night, right? So you can see the change in people. Pay attention to this change. Don't brush it off. Actually look at what's going on and try to help these people. It's not fun. So we're gonna think like flower. We're gonna be the flower. I love this freaking. I really wish this meme was like more clear because I think this is hilarious. Little dog cracks me up. So how do we fix some of this stuff, right? Well, Frank, they give you PTO every year. Why do you have 200 hours of PTO built up in your system? I don't. I've got 94 hours, and in a month and a half, I'm taking 96. I don't care. I don't need PTO. I got plenty of sick time if I get sick. I'm taking my time off, right? Use your vacation time. At the end of the day, and I say this as nicely as I can because one of our administrators are in here, I am just a person. If something happens to me tomorrow, they're going to repost my job next week, right? Don't dedicate your whole life to a job that don't care nothing about what. Of course, they care about us, right? Like I can walk in there to Baker's office or Bert's office or go up there and aggravate Lakin, and they're the nicest people in the world, right? But if something happens, if I told them to frick off tomorrow and I quit, or if I got hurt tomorrow and couldn't work again, my job would be posted a week later. And I'm not mad at them. It's business, right? Use your vacation time, right? Find someone to confide in. This job will absolutely kill you if you don't have somebody to talk to. I was lucky enough that the worst point that I hit in this job, I had somebody beside me. Me and this young lady over here have been riding on the ambulance together for about 5 years. And me and her, that's a big reason why I made it for as long as I did, is because I had her sitting next to me. All these bad calls, all the stuff that we saw, things that we did, we were able to just sit there and chat about it, and it made it a lot easier to go home. And then find some new hobbies. I mean, that's easier said than done sometimes. I go hiking. We go hiking. We go camping. I try to get as far away from people as I can. I know it's kind of weird because I'm standing up here in front of all y'all like I like people, I don't really like people that much, so no offense. Y'all are great. But what I do on my days off is because my job doesn't do anything but revolve around people. So on my days off, I get away from people. Yesterday, I spent 4 hours riding up near Copper Basin in a side-by-side and didn't see a single goddamn person. I was just content as I could be, right? So find something to do, especially in this job. You got to find something to do. Keep your mind off of it. And then find another source of income. Everybody, if you, for whatever reason, decide to leave the mine or, whatever your current job is, and you're like, yeah, I want to go ride an ambulance or go work in the hospital, that's cool. We're not rich. We're not mine money. All right? We're not bad. We're not mine money. If you need some extra money, find something outside of this, right? Get you a second job, go turn some wrenches, go whatever. Don't do like me and work 3 jobs all in EMS. That's what I do. I work here, I work down in Humboldt, I work all over the place on the ambulance. But find something else to do, right? So, a little origami. So y'all have my name or my number, my email address. If y'all need me for anything outside of this class, please don't hesitate. Reach out, let me know. That's what I'm here for. I do the same thing here. I have had hard conversations with a lot of people that work inside this agency. It's rough, right? Mr. Calvin over here is a perfect example. Has everybody met Calvin? This is Calvin. Calvin's our favorite EMT. We'll talk about Calvin more later. With his permission, at one point in time, Calvin was one of our patients in the back of the ambulance. Right? Some people local to this area that met Calvin know why he was in the back of our ambulance. Unfortunately, Calvin almost passed away in the back of one of our ambulances. I was on shift. Becca was there. CJ was there. Mike Harris was there. And that was one of the hardest days this agency's ever had. And we all had to sit down and talk about it afterwards. Luckily, we had a good support system, right? But we'll talk about that later on. I got permission from Calvin, so we actually do deep dive into his case at one point throughout this class. But just understand, we're here, Becca's here. She's not much of a chatter. She's not as much of a chatter as I am. She'll sit up here and teach all stuff, but I'm the clucker, so if y'all need anything, reach out, call me, text me, whatever you need. I'm free. I don't care if it's 2 a.m. If you're sad, you can call me. I ain't got nothing else. I mean, she might be upset that I'm getting out of bed at 2 a.m. Cool. Tag, you're it. Couple people use this bathroom. If y'all, I don't know, it's up to y'all. I don't really care. Some people are weird about the whole
This conference will now be recorded.
They're boring. So, but these are like the part of the class and the test that everybody does the worst at because everybody just, it's boring. It's boring. Nobody wants to do operations. So we're going to get through it. It will get more fun, I promise. But we got to get through these first few chapters. So chapter 1, Introduction to Emergency Medical Services. Here's a picture of your book. You guys already have your book, so it's fine. So our objectives, we're going to review how EMS began, learn the components of the EMS system, learn the rules and responsibilities of EMTs, and then define the rules of EMS in public settings. One thing that we're going to talk about a lot today, I think is in this PowerPoint, is kind of the different places you can utilize your EMT license. So it's not just on an ambulance. There's lots of places. The hospital uses it. You can get jobs in like wilderness. You can go give flu shots to people. Like it's endless. So.
Yeah, I'm a freaking mouse.
I think whatever you do is make my clicker not work anymore.
Yeah. Some reason the camera turned off, so we're just making sure.
Oh. Can you hear me okay, CJ, or should I stand closer to that thing?
I'll double check, but I'm pretty sure I heard you fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
My voice doesn't travel very well. I feel like I'm screaming. So if you can't hear me, please let me know. I've been working on it, but.
That's my baby. All right, try that.
There we go.
I think
All right. Good job. So here's our timeline of EMS. They kind of talked about this in the book. So the 1790s is the earliest documented. The French were out there picking up wounded soldiers off the battlefield, bringing them to physicians. This kind of like during this initial timeline of the EMS, even early EMS in the United States, there wasn't a lot of care provided. So like you've heard the term meat wagon. Like they'd pick up somebody that was hurt or sick and would just drive as fast as they could to the hospital. There was no care provided, so.
And most of the time, it was the like police department or sheriff's departments local to that area. They just had a paddy wagon. They just throw them in the back and just drive them real fast.
Yeah. So around the Civil War, Clara Barton that's kind of where the American Red Cross got initiated. So you see these little posters, that's where all that started. And then World War I was the Volunteer Ambulance Corps. So that's where they'd start like really initiating this. And then the Vietnam War was right after that, is where they would really start utilizing. I think we have a poster out here. It's like American ambulance scene in Vietnam or something. That was from this era. And then the non-military ambulance services. So one thing you'll notice about EMS and like our protocols, our rules, our regulations, we get a lot of our stuff from the military. So obviously the military is dealing with like, trauma most of the time. So you'll see a lot of studies, you'll see a lot of our protocols kind of come from the military because of this, because they see all that stuff all the time and they have such a large database to pull patient information from. And so they're like, hey, this is better. We've been doing this, but let's do it this way. So you'll see that a lot as we progress through like protocols. Some of the stuff in your guys' book, you'll notice this with any kind of healthcare, is a lot of times what's in the textbook is already outdated. By the time that textbook is published, it's outdated. So we'll touch on a lot of that stuff. I got soapboxes. Chaz has soapboxes that we get on about studies that come out, especially like seat collars, back doors, that kind of stuff. You'll hear it all. I don't know if you wanted to look at it. All right, so EMS today, it's kind of funny because we are like regulated by the Department of Transportation. So nobody really takes us that seriously compared to like nursing and stuff. We do have a national registry. You heard Chaz talk about it earlier. So this is going to be a national test that you guys take. It's nationally regulated. It gives you a national certificate. And we always recommend like being up to date on that because it makes switching from like state to state a lot easier. Makes your initial license, like obtaining your initial license, a lot easier. So this is small. I don't think you guys can see it very well. There might be a picture of this in your book. It's just talking about the different components. So obviously we have our patients. They're the ones that call 911, right? Usually, unless a civilian calls or a bystander. So then once they call, goes to our dispatchers, right? Dispatchers, we love them here. Depending on where you work is dependent on whether you get along with your dispatchers or not. So Atlanta, we didn't really get along with our dispatchers. They got real mad at us a lot. And then the emergency medical responders, so that's us. PV, EMTs. And then usually they get taken to some kind of specialty center, depending on what's going on with your patient. So we'll talk about the different kinds of specialty centers, what determines whether we're going to take a patient to like a podunk hospital across the street or like flying to Reno for whatever reason. And then there's like aftercare. So we talk about like if they need to go into like a rehab center or like a long-term care unit or something like that. So components. So our specialized care facilities, we have trauma centers. Does anybody know what trauma centers we have close to here?
I guess Reno.
Salt Lake Vegas has one. Salt Lake City has another. Reno has another one. So those are all pretty far from here. So if we're dealing with like a pretty bad trauma case, we're not going to take them to this hospital. we're gonna call the hospital and get bypass orders so we can fly them out to either, usually it's Salt Lake or Reno. I don't think I've ever flown someone to Vegas. Our burn centers, I don't think, does Reno have a burn center? No,
No.
This one that's Utah.
is in Utah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, Salt Lake City, so the only real deciding factor between a level 1 and a level 2 trauma center is burn capabilities and teaching capabilities. And so Reno is a level 2, and then Salt Lake has a level 1, and Vegas is the only level 1 we have in the state, so.
Level 1 being the more like superior care.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so like your trauma centers are leveled, like level 1 is the most foo-foo, they're great. Level 2 is like, they can do mostly everything. Level 3 is like, if somebody's really crumping, you could take them there, they could stabilize, but ultimately they're gonna end up at a level 1 trauma center anyway. So, and then when you talk about NICUs, they're opposite. So like a level 4 NICU is the best NICU, and level 1 is like, okay, they're NICU. So that can get kind of confusing. We have pediatric centers. I think Salt Lake's really the closest one. Reno does pediatrics, but they don't have like specialty centers. Cardiac centers is another one. So Elko actually can do like heart attack patients. If we have somebody having a heart attack, we can take them to Elko, usually, if they're available. They're not 24 hours though. They have an on-call team. So we have to call them and say, hey, is your team available? And then they tell us yes or no. And then stroke centers, I think the closest one here too is Reno.
Yeah.
So we're not close to a lot out here. A lot of what we do here, if it's really bad, they're gonna get put on a plane or a helicopter. If they do need some kind of like stabilization, if they're really unstable, we'll take them here first, only if they need blood, really. Everything else we can do on the ambulance out here, which is pretty cool. So everybody knows how to call 911. Pretty easy. There's like a text 911 now. We will text. Another thing that people use are the little life alert buttons. So that's another way to access the EMS system.
Who has an iPhone? I hate y'all's goddamn phones. That crash alert bull crap. You know how many times I've chased people down this freaking interstate for that crash alert crap?
Oh, yeah.
It's terrible.
Steve got a call at work, he dropped it out of a dust, fell between the tracks, one of the guys at work,
Yeah,
and dispatch called him, hey, you all right? We just got a 911 call.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and we don't get any information. It'll just say like iPhone alert, and then
iPhone
we'll
alert, right.
chase it down the highway, and there's nothing out there.
Yeah, dude.
Oh.
Trash.
Yeah, it's crazy. The watches, like Apple watches, do the same thing. So like if you fall, it'll like send a fall alert to
Don't smack
dispatch.
somebody too hard.
Yeah, yeah, basically.
So I had a lady who like touched a hot like skillet thing at like one of the hotels and pulled her hand away, and that was enough to trigger it, saying that she fell. So we got there, it's like, hey, yeah, it's good.
Crazy. So our emergency medical dispatchers, depending on where you work, some dispatchers are trained to different levels. So like Chaz's mom works at a dispatch center. She has to do like the EMDR training or something.
Yeah, she works for Gwinnett County, Georgia, which has a population of just over 1 million people. And so they have like 20 dispatchers inside their center at all times, and there's like a lot that goes into it. Versus our dispatch center where you got Kim in there fighting for her life, trying her best, but she does absolutely fantastic. But they do EMD here too. It's just a little bit different when you get up to the bigger cities, the way they break it down.
So when we say EMD, as calls come into the dispatchers, they get triaged. So like if a chest pain calls and a toe pain calls at the same time, right? We want to go to the chest pain first. So the way the EMD works is they ask a series of questions and it'll triage that call. So whoever needs the ambulance first is going to get the ambulance first according to their triage system. So just depending on how busy of a system you work at, the dispatch here does fire, EMS, and PD or SO. So they have a lot of plates to juggle all at the same time, but it'll be different wherever you work. A big thing that I want to point out here is importance of early access to CPR. So that's the really important part about the dispatchers. If someone calls and says this patient's not breathing or they're unresponsive, the dispatcher giving them information on how to start CPR saves more lives than we ever will. Because early CPR saves lives. Like, we can stick tubes in people's throat, we can give drugs, we can do all that stuff, but if they've been down for more than 5 minutes, they're gonna be brain dead anyway. So that's really important. They also like advise how to stop bleeding, that kind of stuff. So here's the levels. You guys are here. So there's EMR. This is only like a couple weeks class, couple months, not very long.
It's like a
It's like a
80-hour
week.
class, 40-hour class.
Yeah, I've never taught one or been in one.
I did
I
EMR,
just-
that's what I started at.
Oh, really?
So in the state of Georgia, they did a revised plan with EMRs where EMRs could drive ambulances. Out here, you can sign up to be a driver of an ambulance and you'll go through like a background check and you can drive ambulances. So depending on where you are in the area, some places don't allow EMRs to do anything but like CPR in the back of the ambulances. They have made it a national registered thing, and in the state of Georgia, you can become a state certified EMR, but the capabilities are extremely limited.
Yeah, like they couldn't even put a pulse ox on a finger. It was very, very limited.
Yeah.
So EMT, they used to call them EMT basics. We call them EMTs now. That was a big change that they did the last few years. You'll notice with any kind of like nationally registered system, whether it's NREMT, which is where you get these patches, or if it's like AHA where you do your CPR, about every 2 years is where everything changes. They like to throw things, little wrenches in your plans. So they used to call it EMT basic, they call it EMT now because no one likes being called a basic. And then we have advanced EMTs. These used to be called intermediates or EMTIs. They used to be able to do a lot more. They took a lot of their scope of practice away, and now it all falls under the paramedic scope of practice. But do not get it confused, because Chaz and I worked on an advanced EMT truck in the city of Atlanta, and we did a lot of stuff as advanced EMTs. So they can still do a lot, just not as much as the paramedic.
You'll still see the EMTIs running around. My dad's an EMTI, so you'll still see them running around. They've been around for a long time. If you see an EMTI patch, they've been around for a while. So
Yeah, I think they took that away in what, like
2012 or something.
Yeah, something like that. So if someone does show up on scene and they're an EMT intermediate or an EMTI and you're an advanced EMT, you are a higher level provider than an EMT intermediate, even though they used to be able to do more things, which is crazy in my brain. It doesn't make sense. They used to be able to innovate and everything else, but NREMT is weird. So we love NREMT around here, so you guys will hear about it. So roles and responsibilities of EMTs. The biggest thing is personal safety. So those pages that we handed out to you guys, the first two is BSI, which is body substance isolation, and scene safety. So remember that personal safety is a constant thing. It's not like you show up on scenes like, is the scene safe? Okay, I'm good. That's something that you look for throughout the entirety of the call, because scenes are dynamic. So we need to always keep our head on the swivel. So safety of crew, patient, and bystanders. If you're not safe, the rule is to get out of there. Because if you're hurt or you get hurt, you're not there, you're not going to be able to help anybody else, right? So you need to protect yourself. You still need to come home to your family. Working with other public safety professionals. So I don't know if we're going to be doing it this year, but we kind of work closely with some of the mines around here. We do like mock calls. We're working on setting one up with the sheriff's department for like training. And then even just like day-to-day calls, we see the sheriff's office on every single one of the calls that we run on, they show up. But that's not like that everywhere. So whether it's the fire department, whether it's the sheriff's office, PD, whatever, you're gonna have to work with people. That's just how it be. So our patient assessment and care, obviously that's a big part of our job. That's the majority of it. Lifting and moving is another thing. You have a whole chapter dedicated on how to lift and move people, and that it is important. I've seen a lot of people get taken out of this business, this job, because they hurt themselves lifting or moving. I've hurt myself lifting somebody wrong. I'm sure Chaz has. It's just, we have tools that we use now that really save our backs. Like you'll see our stretchers, the little automatic ones if you haven't yet. But we still need to move people, because if you get back into like a little tiny cramped house and you need to move someone out of a room, like these are all things that we still deal with every day. Transport, so the safety thing also comes into the transport, not just for whoever the provider is in the back, but also like driving. You guys, to get your state license to work on an ambulance, you have to pass an EVOC course, so we'll talk about all that stuff later. And then the big thing here that kind of gets forgotten about, honestly, is the patient advocacy. So if you know what's better for your patient and you just sit back and keep your mouth shut while someone blatantly does something that's wrong for the patient, you're missing out on the big part of this job. Like, we need to advocate for our patients, right? So there's been a few times that I've walked out of the ER with my freaking ears red and hot because they're just blatantly being negligent or whatever. So we need to be able to stand up for our patients and do what's right for them.
Do you mind giving an example of that?
So,
Yeah, lots.
yeah, just one that I really like to talk about. We had a young lady involved in an accident in Atlanta. She walked away from the car. And so to us, she was like kind of, you could sit here for a second and hang out, because we had another patient that was pretty critical. We had a paramedic crew show up because me and Becca were still working as advanced EMTs. So when the paramedic crew showed up, we passed them off the more critical of the two patients. We went back to check on the other lady that was sitting on the sidewalk, and she was declining pretty rapidly. Somehow she was able to walk away from her car with a broken femur. I'm not really 100% sure how she did that. I guess the adrenaline kicked in and she was able to walk away. And at some point she nicked an artery, her femoral artery, and she was bleeding out inside of her leg. And she was starting to lose her blood pressure. She became altered. And me and Becca put a tourniquet on her leg. Well, she didn't look like she needed a tourniquet, right? Like she didn't have this squirting blood all over the place, but we knew what was going on with her, so we stuck a tourniquet on her. We took her out to Grady, which is the level 1 trauma center. Unfortunately for us, it was the middle of new doctor season, so we walked in and this new doctor was standing there all high and mighty. He was like, "Wow, the frick is this tourniquet on this lady's leg?" While Becca's like actively giving a report to them about why the tourniquet was on her leg. Snatches the tourniquet on her leg, about 2 minutes later, her blood pressure was back in the tank. She was getting altered. She was starting to freaking circle the drain again. And then all of a sudden, the doctor starts screaming and yelling about needing blood. I just turned around. I was like, "That's why the goddamn tourniquet was on the leg," and I just walked out because I was pretty pissed off. So, patient advocacy is big.
Yeah.
You know.
So how would you have changed that situation? Like, how did you grow from
Well,
that?
I think it was kind of hard because, like, in that situation in particular, like we were doing everything right. It's just nobody was listening.
Mm.
You can advocate for your patients, and sometimes it's going to work, and sometimes it's not. Right? You still have to do it. You still have to try, right? Because Beck was actively trying to tell them, like, this is why she has a tourniquet. The doctor just walks over there and snatches it off. So at that point, it's their patient, like, you know.
It's like one of those things that you learn though, because like I've had patients where I've learned this lesson the hard way, and now I do things different. So like we have a certain medication that helps with somebody's blood pressure. And I walked in there, brand new paramedic. I was like, I hung this medication, their blood pressure's good, and they disconnected it immediately. Patient crump died, right? So the next time, and every time after that, I hang a blood pressure medication on my patient. I sit there and hug it until somebody has theirs ready to go. Like it's just something that like you learn from those mistakes, and then like you change how you do things later. So like I won't let them disconnect mine until they have theirs ready to go when I know this patient's gonna crump with that. So it's just like little things like that. That's huge.
Yeah, you just gotta try. I don't fault you for trying. I mean, you can only do so much, but they don't listen to us.
Yeah.
So.
I've also seen like we'll get more into it. This is one of my soapbox, like fake seizures. They call them pseudo seizures. You'll run into a lot of older providers. They'll walk up to you and be like, they're having a fake seizure, and like roll their eyes. And like all it takes is like setting them straight. Like to the patient, it's a real seizure. Like yes, there are people that fake seizures to get out of being arrested or whatever. But there is a psychological condition that causes somebody to have seizure-like activity. So to that patient, that seizure is very real. So whenever someone comes up to me and they're rolling their eyes, like I'm going to say something about it because I wouldn't want someone to talk about my family member like that. So that's just how I feel. But you'll run into different people that think differently. So, okay, critical decision making, very important concept. We deal with critical decision making almost every single day, and in different aspects. So whether it's like a scene safety kind of thing, like how are we going to get to this patient that's behind this down power line? If it's, should I give this medication over this medication? Should I go to this hospital over this hospital? Should I do this intervention now or later? Like these are things that are always coming at you in different like perspectives of every call. The biggest thing, Chaz told you day one, I'm big about assessing your patient. I'm always going to be. Please put your hands on your patient, assess your patient. Just because your patient was fine when you initially got on scene doesn't mean that patient's going to stay fine all the way to the hospital. We've had plenty of people just die out of nowhere. So make sure that you're assessing the patient. I like to say that your patient just doesn't just suddenly trump, you just suddenly noticed. There's always something that's a precursor that, hey, this patient is sick, that you need to pay attention to. Okay. So, traits of a good EMT. What are some traits you guys might think are a good EMT trait?
Empathy.
Empathy is a big one. I like it. What about taking a shower?
Yeah, bro, if you walk in here stank, I'm gonna tell you about it.
Yeah. Please take showers. We even have showers here. If you are one of those people that need to shower every 6 hours, not to stink, we have showers here to help yourself. What else?
Studious.
Communication.
Communication is huge. What did you say?
Studious.
Studious. Okay. I like it. I like it. All right. Good eyesight. These are all just stuff in the book, you know. Make sure to go to your eye doctor. If you can't see, I've worked with people that couldn't see at night and freaking drove me around and I almost died. So please make sure your eyes are good. That's another thing. I'm not a good driver. Well, I'm not, like I'll drive. That's fine. I get lost is my problem. I am the definition of a passenger princess. I will sit in that passenger seat all day long.
That's true.
Yeah. Communication we talked about, not only like physically talking with somebody, but writing stuff down. So like we'll talk about charting. It's important to be able to communicate into your chart as to what happened on scene if you are painting a picture. Because usually when these lawsuits come back around, they're never like a month later. They're like years later. So you're looking at a chart of a patient that you ran 3 years ago. And they're like, okay, now go testify. And you're like, I don't remember anything and I didn't write anything down. So I don't know what actually happened. So that's important. Make sure you're pleasant, sincere, cooperative. Resourceful is a big thing. So this job kind of creates, you need to be a MacGyver a little bit sometimes. So
We're lucky out here. The
yeah,
county affords us some very nice things. We come from a system where we had to use glove boxes as splints. So understand that we gotta kind of bougie out here, but
yeah,
there are places that you go that you have to MacGyver things, using pillows as splints and different things, like.
Yeah.
You learn how to work what you got.
yeah. I will also say, like, being the pleasant person, it's great to walk in and be nice. Like, you should be nice to your patients. But sometimes you got to give it back to them. I know it doesn't say that in the book, but sometimes some people just need it. I had to bring out my mom voice the other day. It doesn't come out often. When it does, you know it's needed. So be a self-starter. Make sure that the thing about this job is it's always changing. Like I said, those textbooks are already outdated and they just came out. So the big thing about this job is you consistently need to be continuing education, right? So do the work, study. If something interests you, keep reading about it. That's huge in this job because it's always changing. And then whenever they start changing protocols, it's not such a smack in the face. Because they're like, oh yeah, backboard everybody. And then tomorrow they're going to be like, never backboard again. You're going to be like, why? So it's important to know those things. Being a leader is huge. That was one thing I really struggled with because I'm always like the person that's quiet in the back. And being able to like lead a scene and like be that person that people are looking to for direction, that's hard to do. It's not an easy thing. So practice makes perfect. Being some sort of orderly, neat and clean. I'm not usually the
She's a
best.
messy man.
I'm a messy
She
man.
makes messes in the back of the
I do. The wheel well, I'm like, oh, trash goes there. And then that's just how I clean up afterwards though. That's what's important. All right. So education and EMS, as I was talking about, maintain up to date in your skills. If you don't use your skills, you lose your skills. So you're going to learn how to put OPAs and you're going to learn how to do CPR. You're going to learn how to do all this stuff. And then once you pass this class, you may not touch it ever again, right? So the next time you need to use it, you're going to be like, I don't know what to do. And it happens to everybody. So it's important to be able to keep practicing your skills. Make sure you're still reading stuff. Make sure you're staying up to date. There's different options that you have about like refresher courses. So once you get your National Registry EMT, I think it's 24 hours or 40.
Yeah, I think that EMT 24.
Yeah. You need a certain amount of hours to keep your National Registry up to date. Every 2 years, they say, all right, put however many hours you did of like continuing education in the website, and then they approve you for another 2 years. So there's EMS cruises that you can take if that's what you're into. There's conferences. One of the conferences is on your guys' schedule, the one in March over in Elko. That's a way to get continuing education. They do that every year. Different states do different things. There's a few websites that you can go on and get continuing education through there, but it is important to do it. Yeah, seminars, lectures. Some of them are really cool. We went to one in Georgia. It was like a cardiology conference. A bunch of really, really smart doctors got up there and started talking. Most of it went right over our heads, but it was still cool to like see how things work on that realm of things. And we got hours for it, so it's a win-win. This is huge. That's why I bolded it, underlined it, made it big. So it's called a scope of practice, not a scope of knowledge, right? So never open a textbook or an article or a journal or a study and be like, oh, I don't need to read this because I'm just an EMT. It's important to be able to understand things and know things. So Calvin is the biggest person that I can even relate to this. Calvin's an EMT basic. He went through a critical care class, which most paramedics don't even do. He has his degree in neuroscience, and he's going to nursing school right now. So it's important to just keep that knowledge, right? But I just don't want you guys to look at something and be like, I'm just an EMT basic. I don't ever want you to just think that.
A good paramedic is really dependent on a good EMT. I can be a completely different paramedic and make completely different decisions based off of who's sitting beside me in the ambulance. I can tell you that wholeheartedly. Like that woman there, we've been doing it so long together that if there's a decision or a question on whether I want to do something, I'll do it because we've been doing it so long together. On the flip side, I'll do the same thing with Marcus because Marcus is a really good EMT. Be a good EMT, it makes your partner's life a lot easier. If you suck, then the whole truck sucks.
Here's more about the National Registry. Yeah, we're gonna get it at the end of the class. Most likely this year we're gonna bring in the state again. You guys will take it here. I think it's like $100 or something to take the test. It's worth it to have. It makes it a lot easier to keep your licensure. It sucks every 2 years to do your continuing education upload stuff. Like actually uploading it onto the website sucks. Just because it's stressful. But All right, so QI, quality improvement. So this is all about like reviewing what has happened and bettering yourself from that. There's always something to learn in every situation that you run in EMS. So a lot of times whenever you work for an agency, they'll have a QI, QA service that will review your charts and they'll say, hey, you did really good here, but maybe let's fix something over here. Like these people aren't here to be mean. And I used to think that. I used to get a QA message and I'd be like, dang, I'm again. But now that I've done it, I'm like, I understand. Like people are reading your charts, they want you to do better. So, so medical direction, you'll kind of have your normal scope of practice, right? So in EMS, you have a normal scope of practice. You have written protocols on an ambulance that you can perform without having to call a doctor every 2 seconds and be like, can I give this med? Can I do this? Can I do that? It's all written down. And then from there, if you want to deviate from your protocols at any point, or if your protocols require you to call medical direction, you'll call them. But the medical direction is like what oversees EMS. So as an EMS agency, you are working under some doctor's license somewhere. Depending on, like here we have Dr. Herman and Hansen are the same person in my brain. So Dr. Herman's our medical director. We're all functioning under his license. So he signs off on our protocols like, yeah, I'll let him do that. They don't have to call me to do this. And so we can do a lot of stuff out here, but you'll work other places that don't have that freedom if you get into this. So here's some of those roles that we were talking about. Your EMT license does not confine you to an ambulance. So you can do public education, CPR courses, stop the bleed courses. If you are really interested in wilderness stuff, you can go teach wilderness courses or take a wilderness course. You can do car seat checkups if you want, flu shots. There's people, I actually took a class when I was working in Idaho to go around to old folks' homes and like help them with tripping hazards. Like that's a whole nother realm of EMS that you don't really hear about. Yeah, flu shots, the flu pod here, they did it for a while. Some of the paramedics here would give the flu shots and stuff. EMS research, we talked about this. A lot of it comes from the military. Peer-reviewed research, medical journals. Please keep in mind that cognitive bias is a thing. So you're gonna like have one thought in your brain one day and you're gonna be like, yeah, this is how we should be doing things. You can find articles and journals that are like, yeah, this is how you should be doing it. And you're gonna show people and be like, yeah. And then you poll the research and they had like 3 patients in their whole study. So it's important to look at like journals and research and stuff if you're trying to pull information on why we do stuff or why we shouldn't do stuff, and look at how many like patients they're pulling from. Because if you pull from 3 patients, if I give 3 patients an aspirin pill and one of them feels better and 2 of them don't, that doesn't mean that aspirin doesn't work, right? So you want to look at like every time you look up whatever kind of research you're going to look up, make sure you actually look into what you're reading, because cognitive bias is a thing. So yeah, that's chapter 1. You guys can go to the bathroom. We have an hour and a half. I got 2 more PowerPoints.
This conference will now be recorded.
Is the Saturday class on Pearson?
Yes.
Yeah? Because it says, okay.
I can do both.
Yeah, if we double stack Saturdays and it's just a typo somewhere, we'll fix it.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out.
Okay.
All right, so chapter 2, objectives, define standard precautions, give examples of the standard precautions, identify organisms that cause infection, diseases of concern, and then we're going to talk about who regulates training and guidelines for prevention of disease. This test was a little bit more difficult than the first one, right? Yeah. All right, so well-being, keep yourself prepared for demands and risks of being an EMT. Big thing that we talk about here is like the lifting and moving patients, staying healthy. You don't want to walk into someone's house being like 400 pounds, not being able to breathe yourself. You know, that's important. You need to take care of yourself. healthy diet's important, all that. And then if you're on reason to function for any reason, your patient don't get the care that they need. So how do we maintain solid personal relationships? Exercise, sleep, eating good. Make sure you limit your alcohol, caffeine intake. And then keep up to date on vaccines. A lot of places that you work will ask for like your vaccine records. They'll do titers, all that fun stuff. So standard precaution, but body substance isolation, PPE, BSI, all this stuff is how you protect yourself. So gloves, glasses, gowns, booties,
I
whatever.
remember the COVID days, we were all walking around in ambulances looking like freaking ding-dings
Yeah.
and realized it really didn't help much.
So we didn't get the blue ones, we got the yellow ones.
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't wear any of it. I was just raw dogging life,
Yeah.
figuring it out.
So on those sheets that you see, the first thing you say is BSI, scene safe. You'll see a lot of EMS memes where they're like, BSI, scene safe, hands up in the air. So part of that is protecting yourself. Some people are very particular about it. Some people aren't. I worked with someone that had been in EMS since the 80s. She would never wear gloves, ever. I seen her wear gloves once, and the dude's head was gone. So that's the only reason she was wearing gloves. So eye and face protection, very important. So let me tell you a little something. This guy over here,
Nah, don't blame me.
don't blame me. This guy over here. So we had a call, came out, dude shot in the leg. Perfect timing. We're like, this call came out at the perfect time for us to get off on time. Easy call, guy shot in the leg. Take him into the trauma center, drop him off, leave, go home on time. Great. We get up there. He's not really just shot in the leg. He's also shot in the belly, and he's also dead. But he's not dead enough to where we could just be like, you're dead. He took a single breath as we walked in. So we had to work it. So I'm sitting here like this doing CPR. This guy's huge. He's wearing little teeny tiny underwear that he did not need to be wearing. So Chaz whips out his freaking scissors, goes to cut blood from his underwear right in my eyeball. Like good enough where I had to blink like 4 times.
It wasn't my fault. You shouldn't be wearing a gun or no.
Well, I had to blink like 4 times to get the blood out of my eye, and I was like, okay, that's an exposure. So this getting off on time ended up me getting off 4 hours
I
late.
know you, Buzz. I
He
stayed.
got off 4 hours late. He stayed in the ER with me and drew my blood for me. He's a good partner. And so I had to be on prophylactic medication for a year that made me perpetually nauseous. So it's important to wear eye and face protection, and that is my story. So don't let ball blood get in your eyeball because it sucks.
Then we
And
had
don't
to carry
trust
that
him with
big bastard
scissors.
downstairs. But my scissors work great.
Yeah, they work a little too great. All right, so if there's any point that you feel like you're gonna get something sprayed in your eyeball, put glasses on. We have like those masks. The big thing for that, I'm gonna be honest, the only time I really wore like safety glasses, I should have worn them that one day. But if you're ever delivering a baby, just cover everything. Right? The Miracle of Life is fantastic. That's great. But there's a lot of wet, sticky, and not mine that gets all over everything in the back of an ambulance when you're delivering a baby. Masks. If you have a TB patient, tuberculosis, if it's suspected, you should wear N95. Everybody's familiar with N95 now that COVID's a thing. When I went through EMT school, I'm like, what's an N95? I don't know what that is. I've never seen one. And then COVID started, and everybody knows. So gowns, again, your best friend in childbirth. There are things called explosive deliveries. So if anybody's familiar, if you're not familiar, you will be. So biohazard stuff, all of this is regulated by OSHA. They have the strict guidelines. So CDC and OSHA develop guidelines. Make sure you refer to your local protocols for this stuff. And then if you have an exposure, make sure you know what to do. So like for me, I had to notify a supervisor, and then I had to go get my blood drawn. They reported it to the ER so they could start all the prophylactic stuff. The dude that I got his blood in my eyeball, they couldn't test in for anything. So that's why I got put on like prophylactic stuff. But sometimes if you have a patient that you get exposed from, they can go test the patient for you. So you don't have to go through all that. So just refer to your guidelines. Usually it's a go to your supervisor kind of thing. I did have one exposure to tuberculosis when I was working in Idaho in a nursing home. And like, I didn't know she had tuberculosis. I found out like 11 months later. They called me and they're like, this lady had tuberculosis. I was like, great, thanks. So usually nothing really comes of it. They, like, meningitis is a big thing, tuberculosis, they're always worried about. Usually you just go in and get like tested, or like if you're exposed to meningitis, they'll give you like a single pill to take. It's really not bad. Just don't go licking needles and stuff. All right, so pathogens are the organisms that cause an infection. They can be bloodborne or airborne, so that's why it's important to protect yourself. Again, don't go licking on patients. Gross. Diseases of concern. So we have hepatitis B and C. This affects your liver. So what is this called right here? Good. Yeah, so that's a sign of liver problems, right? So not every patient that has jaundice is going to have hepatitis, but you know, if they're not really sure, we've been on patients that you just show up and they're glowing yellow and they're like, yeah, I don't have any liver problems. And you're like, well, your check liver light's on, so maybe we should go check that out. Just keep that in mind. Don't stick them with a needle and stab yourself. So hepatitis B, there's a vaccine available for hepatitis B. Usually you have to get it if you're going to be in any kind of healthcare setting. And then there's hepatitis C. There is no vaccine yet, but it has the same risk. So yeah, just be mindful. Tuberculosis. Does everyone know who that guy is? Yeah. Tuberculosis. So infects lungs, highly contagious.
If you do not know who this is, you are a child. Yes.
I don't know.
I'm gonna say it. I'll say it out loud.
Tombstone?
No.
Oh, God. I know who he is.
I know what we're doing next class.
We know what we're doing on Saturday.
We do need to watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tuberculosis, you'll see this. Usually your test questions when it comes to like NREMT and they start talking about tuberculosis, it's always going to be the same kind of question. It's like, okay, you showed up to a homeless encampment or like a dorm room or a nursing home. It's always like a densely populated place. And then they'll be like, they had a cough and night sweats. And usually they don't tell you that they're coughing up blood, but they'll say cough and night sweats. And then that should be your little buzzer that's like, this is tuberculosis. That's always going to be your scenario for tuberculosis. But N95 mask, if you have somebody if you suspect tuberculosis in your patient, make sure you're protecting yourself. Put a mask on them, put a mask on you. That's the rule. So AIDS, so HIV, AIDS. Usually what you'll see is like these set of sores in the mouth. It's affecting their immune system. So they're going to be immunocompromised. So HIV advances into AIDS.
This is not gonna jump out and bite you.
Yeah.
We had 8,726 AIDS patients in Atlanta. I can stand here firmly and say that I do not have HIV or AIDS. But don't be scared of the people if they say they have AIDS, especially now how busy this town's getting with all the travelers. Chances are more likely that you run into it. It's fine. Like Becca said, just don't go licking on their freaking wet stuff and you'll be fine. Don't stab yourself in the needle with their needle. You'll be fine.
All right, other diseases, and there will be more, I'm sure, like the United States. Ebola was a huge thing, I remember, for a while. Then
Monkeypox.
monkeypox, yeah, the bird flu. So these are all things that I'm pretty sure Ebola makes you like bleed from your eyeballs and stuff. I've never actually seen it.
We had to deal with all these weird diseases, like the first Ebola case that popped up, showed up in Atlanta. because the CDC being in Atlanta, Grady had to transport them. So we had to deal with all that stuff in Atlanta. I never personally had to transport any of these people, but we were always generally a first stop. So it's fine. It's not gonna off you.
All right, so if you have been exposed, the Ryan White Care Act lets you guys find out if you've been exposed. So you need to notify your employer if you suspect something, and then they'll notify you. You have a right to know if this patient had whatever they had. So, OSHA, again, we need to make sure that we're following in accordance. Whenever you are dealing with the sharps, make sure you're exposing of the sharps appropriately. Yeah, biohazard bags, they don't get put in with normal trash bags, those kinds of things. Whenever you start somewhere in any healthcare service, if you haven't already, they usually make you take like a whole bloodborne pathogens class, like a couple hours or something. So, another thing I want to talk about here is MRSA. So MRSA, pretty prevalent in healthcare. We're exposed to it a lot. Does everybody know what MRSA is? Okay, it's like an antibiotic resistant or pathogen,
It
basically.
lives inside the digestive tract. It's not that scary.
Yeah, it lives inside digestive tracts. They did like a study where they swabbed healthcare providers' noses that are working in hospital. It was like a crazy high number of healthcare providers that just have it living dormant in their nose. So that's cool. Usually if you have a patient that's like really sick all the time and they've spent a lot of time in the hospital, they've dealt with MRSA at least one time or another. And that, because it can live dormant, it can like, they are more susceptible to it later on too. So.
Isn't it when you have like an antibiotic resistant infection?
Yeah.
And then, so how does that become not dormant if a lot of people have it dormant? Like, does it
Not
just
to
get in a cut?
Too like into the weeds and stuff, but bacteria can form like spores. They're
Mm.
not called spores, they're called like endospores, something like that. And it makes them really resistant to like environmental stressors and all this stuff. They sort of like hang out in a low energy state until they make contact with something that gives them energy again. And like MRSA, for example, lives on like hospital equipment. Like you'll disinfect it, do all the things you're supposed to, but because it's resistant to that stuff, it just hangs out there for a bit. And then when like Mima's in the hospital for 10, 15 days because she had like pneumonia or something, her immune system's already weak, her, what's the word I'm looking for here? Her micro body, like her makeup of all the pathogens that live inside her is already weak, so then that's when MRSA like develops basically. It's like really common in people who get surgeries and it leads to like sepsis, and that's an actual problem.
And that's why Calvin's our doctor. So immunizations, so get your immunizations. Usually your work or your employer will ask for your immunization history. You go to school to be like a nurse or anything, they'll ask for it. They ask for it for my paramedic school. It's just, does everybody know what this is?
TSS.
Yeah, they suck. I don't like it.
That's not that bad.
Whenever the little bubble goes up under there, I'm like,
It's like a little blister. So
I don't like it. So scene safety, again, this is gonna be drilled into your brain. So BSI, scene safe is my scene safe. So, this will be the most important decision of any call. Scenes are dynamic, they change. It's important to always be surveying for scene safety. As I say again, this is just a common thing. We're gonna talk about this throughout the duration of the whole class. So,
One of the only times that you will not get in trouble for abandoning the patient is when the scene becomes unsafe. If a family member makes it unsafe, if the patient makes it unsafe, you can walk out of that house without repercussions. If you do that any other time, that's a different conversation you're gonna have to have. But we have done it, especially working in Atlanta. I have walked, slap out of people's houses, leaving the patients sitting on the couch. So if you need to, look out. It's all right. They'll be there whenever you get back.
Y'all are familiar with these books?
If you're not familiar, the hazmat books, we'll talk about it way down the road, like the very end of class. We'll talk about these books a little bit more. If you've never seen one of these things, they're very daunting. They look very, there's a lot of information. They're pretty simple to get through.
There's an
Right.
app on your phone now. There's
Yeah, you can carry them on your phone. We carry them in the ambulance per the state policy. So,
this is something that I picked up working in Atlanta. When you knock on front doors, I always knock like that. I don't stand in front of the front door and knock. I've heard horror stories of people getting shot through the door, so that's not something that I do. So wear safe clothing. When they talk about that, the reflective vest, that is safe clothing. Prepare your equipment. Make sure you have everything ready to go. Your portable radio. Another thing I thought they talked about on this slide, one thing to be mindful of if you wear like a radio strap. I've heard stories of people, like patients grabbing the radio strap and like pulling them in. So just be mindful of that kind of stuff.
you show up with shoes that aren't resistant to things like fluids, I'm gonna giggle myself and then watch you get a soaking wet foot later on. We all wear boots. I'll wear these around the station just because I don't want to walk around with boots all day. But when I leave out of here for a call, I'll put my boots on. So whenever y'all come here to ride, try to wear shoes that don't hold moisture, because the first time some drunk guy behind the Nevada pukes all over your foot, I'm gonna laugh at you. So just be mindful of that.
My very first ride along in the EMT, I had a drunk guy puke in my pocket and filled it up. So, I mean, obviously I can't wear water resistant pants, but it's a thing that happens. You will get puked on. Yeah, safety roles. So if you're dealing like with your partner, or like usually your workplace will have some kind of system in place, there's a word. But also talk with your partner before you even start running. So it's important to know, like, hey, if this happens, this is what I'm gonna do. So another thing is make sure you're observing your surroundings. So like with crime scenes, we try not to disturb crime scenes as much as possible. There are times that you have to move stuff, like if you're trying to deal with a patient, obviously, but don't walk around stepping on crack pipes and shit. So,
East Point Police Department gets mad about that.
yeah, allegedly. Weapons, bystanders, pets. I love dogs. I love cats. But you need to be mindful that some people's dogs don't like you being next to their person. So keep an eye out.
Calvin's dog is a perfect example.
Yeah.
He almost bit my partner's face off.
And then family members. So we never know how people are going to react, especially in really stressful situations. So I like to keep a line of sight on my escape in any house that I go to. I never like lock the door behind me, obviously, but some people have those doors that automatically lock when they shut. Sometimes I'll just take the deadbolt and pull it out, like turn it out. So as the door shuts, it'll catch on the deadbolt. So if I need to leave, I can just pull the door open. So like those are things that you'll like pick up here and there, just because you don't want to be stuck in someone's house with them if things go south. So react to danger, the 3 R's: respond, radio, and reevaluate. Do not re-enter the scene unless it has been cleared. So if PD or SO clears the scene and all of a sudden it gets unsafe again for whatever reason, don't go just walking back in there. Also, not around here, I haven't run into it, but in bigger places, don't always trust that the scene is safe just because PD is on scene. Guys and I have hung out in a house with a lady that was shot. We were sitting there like, yep, she's dead. And the officer walked in and was like, okay, did anybody clear the house? And they all pulled out their guns like, oh shit, we should clear the house. And the guy was upstairs in the attic the whole time. So like, don't trust something. That's all I'm gonna say.
Around here, they're pretty good.
Yeah.
But just be mindful of it.
So later on, we'll talk about like cover and concealment, all that stuff. Concealment is like where you can hide, but you're not completely like safe from flying objects, specifically bullets. So concealing yourself is one thing, but then also taking cover is another thing. Two different things. So concealing this bush. Forget about the equipment. If you are put in an unsafe situation, don't be like, oh, this monitor is $500,000. I need to protect. I don't care about that monitor. Leave it on. I don't care. All right, questions. One more.
So are there vaccines that we should have before we start them?
I would say hepatitis B for sure. I mean, if you don't have them, that's fine. Like, we don't require you. It's gonna be up to you. But if I were you, I would just definitely have hepatitis B.
Like, I don't do the flu shot. It makes me feel worse than actually getting the flu. So like,
The COVID thing.
I only got the COVID shot because I wanted to get a Hawaii and maybe, so I did that, but, yeah, it's really up to you. Some places that you go will like require all these things, some places don't. They don't require it here. Like in Atlanta, they required us to have flu shots. I was super cool with my supervisor, so she just like wrote it down, and I got my flu shot.
Yeah, like chicken pox and stuff. I don't know. I'm not that concerned about all that. If you
Alright.
haven't had chicken pox, that would really suck to get it.
Yeah, I already had.
Yeah.
So we're gonna get on a couple of soapboxes, going through some of this stuff. There's a reason why. You may have been taught things in the past. It's cool, it's not 1980 anymore, we're not doing things like that anymore. And I say this as politely as I can to the mine rescue folks. I had the same conversation with Marigold last year about some things that we have soapboxes on, and it's just because of the way that we do things in the environment that we work in. We do things a little bit different. Do things the way that you are taught, we're just gonna have our soapboxes. Don't take offense to it. But yeah, especially backboard. God, we will let you know that those things are trash many times before this class is over with, and I will stand. I have almost gone to blows with people about the freaking backboard, so we'll talk about it.
Soapbox. All right, last one, and then I'll be free for today. So objectives, lifting, moving patients. So learn proper use of your body to prevent injury. We talked about, back injuries, take people out of this job. So protect your patient with emergency, urgent, and non-urgent moves. We're gonna talk about when to use each of those moves. We're not gonna make y'all carry each other around the classroom or anything. We'll talk about it. So position your feet properly, use your legs. Don't lift with your back, don't twist. Y'all have been through high school gym, I'm pretty sure they teach you that. So don't twist. If at any point, like in this picture, most of the time when we lift patients, not every time, we're using more than one person. So that's where communication also comes into play, because if I'm losing grip or whatever and I need to set the patient down, I need to let my partner know that I'm dropping the patient, setting him down. Make sure you're keeping the weight as close as possible to your body, and then try not to lift stuff over your head, right? So we don't want to hurt ourselves. We want to keep things close. We use certain equipment here. People have different feelings about the stair chair.
The things
One-
that devil.
One of these Saturdays, we'll pull out the stair chair and let y'all play with it. If you can unfold it and then fold it and then unfold it, and put it back together first try, I'll buy you lunch, because that's not a thing. I still can't do it. So I'm always like, what's this lever do? What's this lever do? And then it finally
There's like
closes.
16 red levers on that thing.
Yeah, so.
No, so sure.
Then at a certain point, I just get mad.
Yeah.
It's a thing.
Yeah.
It's fine.
It's great to use when, like, you don't have another option, but we don't use them a lot. Some people love them, so I don't know, I don't really care that much for them. We have mega movers.
You have
Some,
like the seated movers.
yeah, yeah.
We have backboards and scoop stretchers. We'll use backboards to move people, but then they come off.
Yeah, they go away. All right, so things to consider, the object. So not every object that we're picking up in this job is, you know, a box. Some of them are human shaped, some of them are, you know, car parts or what have you. So make sure you know your limitations. If you feel like you can't lift something for whatever reason, make sure you're communicating that with whoever you're working with, whoever's working with you. Because you don't want to just be like, yeah, I can lift this thing, and then hurt yourself and hurt your partner in the process. So we talked about the communication. So these stretchers, they do the hands under technique. That's fine. I was also taught, because at Grady we didn't have like automatic stretchers that lifted themselves into the ambulance. So if you wore like a belt, you could rest it on your belt. That helps you as well. Obviously it's not going to carry the whole weight of the stretcher, but it helps you, especially for shorter people. Like I'm always like a half inch too short for it to be comfortable. So use your resources. So push rather than pull whenever possible. This is big because stretcher etiquette is a real thing. So 2 people push the stretcher, or 1 pulls and 1 pushes. The person that's pushing the stretcher is supposed to do most of the work. The person that's pulling the stretcher is there to turn. Okay, so there's been a lot of EMS providers that get out of this job early or need surgery because they need shoulder surgery because of pulling the stretcher. So make sure that if you're, you know, helping somebody with a stretcher and you're on the backside, you're pushing. You're not just like watching them pull it. So that's
We
not
will
something.
teach y'all how to work stretchers because somebody had a student that didn't know how to work the stretchers and flipped it over. So without a patient, it just hurt somebody's tummy. And so we'll talk about moving stretchers
It
around.
was this thumb.
We'll talk about moving stretchers around. So like, and when Becca says like communicate with your partner, like when me and Becca move patients, I'm always on the pool side trying to move patients over. So like when we're moving patients to the from the stretcher to the bed, I'm always on the side to pull them over because that's like most of the force that you're trying to use, right? I don't want to stick her over there trying to snatch on some 250, 300-pound grown man, right? Like, so I'm generally that person that goes over there and does that. So talk to your partner before, that way y'all know what works best for y'all, and that way it makes it easier.
So if the weight is below your waist, push or pull from the kneeling position. I've never gotten on my knees and been like, move patient.
Yeah.
But per the book, that's what you're
I
supposed
think
to
what
do.
this is referring to is like the same thing, like if you're moving somebody from one bed to another, like you get up on the bed, and like get on your knees and then pull them. Because you'll see me do that a lot, like I'll take a knee and stick it up on the hospital bed and then pull them over. So I think that's kind of what it's referencing. But I mean, if you're on the floor on your knees, like dragging people around, and my knees ain't built like that, so.
So when do you think we would need to use an emergency room?
That's not safe. Hazardous.
What means 5 yards?
Life over limb.
Yeah, life over limb, that's the big one. So like if the patient, like say they're in the car and you want to do like consider C-spine and all that fun stuff, but the car's on fire. I'm gonna yank them out either way. Like I'm not gonna be like, hold their neck, I'm gonna do this.
Somebody wears a collar.
Yeah, they're not breathing, they're coming with me. I'm not gonna sit there and like, I'm gonna be mindful while I do it, but I'm not gonna just pay special attention to that. So, seat's not safe, life-threatening conditions requires repositioning. So that, what they're talking about there most of the time is like an airway thing. So we reposition people to get their airway open so we can breathe for them. Or maybe they might start spontaneously breathing if we move their airway to an open position. So that's important. if there's multiple patients for whatever reason, we're gonna talk about MCIs. We'll talk about them a little on Thursday, and then mostly at the end of class, we go over it again. So multiple patients. We will be putting on a TECC class, which is like a tactical emergency course. We'll keep you guys updated when we're doing the next one. But we're gonna talk about a lot of this stuff too. So like school shooting environments, MCIs, like mass casualty things. Whenever we're moving people, we're not really that nice about it because we're trying to get everybody to one area so we can do the most good for the most amount of people. And so we're not over there real nice, like two people, like, okay, lift with your knees, we're gonna be dragging people and all that stuff. So make sure you're going head first. You don't want to make their head go.
It's fine.
Yeah, it happens to the best of us.
Yeah.
All of us have
We'll
really
figure it
dropped
out.
one patient or another at some point.
It's
Ball blood guy, he got dropped on his foot.
Listen, bro, hey, that was some steep stairs. Big fella.
And there wasn't enough room for like multiple people, so it was like Chaz on one end and the firefighter on the other end.
And he was a small firefighter, and I did not want to drop that guy.
Yeah. I was like, Chaz, you got it? He goes, nope.
Me and him went downstairs.
It's fine.
Yeah, so just be mindful of that. I mean, when you gotta move people, you gotta move people. I love the life over limb acronym, like the saying life over limb. Everybody's like, C-spine. I don't freaking care about your broken neck. If your car's on fire, or you're half dead and you're dying, like, I'm gonna move you. You might not be able to move your legs later, but, you know, you'll be allowed to talk about it. So.
There's clothes drag. There's a bunch of them that you can use. So there's the clothes drag. There's one that we use like this strap that you can like put like around their shoulders and in between their legs.
It's
And
like a
pull
hasty
them.
harness.
Yeah, the harness. Yeah, there's lots of ways to move people.
Listen, if I see somebody doing this, first I'm gonna have questions. Then I'm gonna judge you a little bit. I know it said the first thing not to be judgmental. I'm gonna judge you. Yeah. Yeah, they practice that a lot at the fire department.
Cal fireman?
No.
Yeah.
No. Maybe the ones down south that are, never mind.
Your patient's like, dang, Russian.
The ones.
Shut up, man, you're dying.
So one rescuer assist, two rescuer assist. I've seen people also carry, like you can have an arm over your shoulder, carry your legs, whatever works. So urgent move, again, life over limb. So we use backboards and scoop stretchers to move patients. If there's a car down in a ditch and I can't get my stretcher down to it, and I need to get the patient out of the car onto my stretcher, I'm gonna use a backboard to do it. They're coming off the backboard as soon as they touch my stretcher. These scoop stretchers are nice for like Granny that fell and broke her hip. She's like laying on her side and it hurts to move her. Cause you can just like scoop her up, click it, and then pick her right up.
Just
put her on
watch for
stretcher,
freaking
pick-
chicken wings.
Yeah.
Don't flip her chicken wings in.
Yeah, this. I pinched a titty. That's all I'm saying. So be mindful. Not my own patients, unfortunately. But it's a finger getter too. So especially the ones we have, ours aren't this nice. They're like metal because we never use them. They're like these metal little quitchy things. Yeah. Don't put your finger in it.
I don't know if it's in y'all's book. When I was making the test, this thing loves to say with the urgent moves that you need to use this backboard. Listen, if I'm just trying to move you, I'll use the backboard. If I need to move you fast, I'm not going to take the time to put you on this backboard. I'm just going to pick you up and move you. I have been covered in blood more than once, moving people quickly. Those backboards, I will show you 8,727 studies that say that those things are terrible for you. You can move your patient with them. Do not leave them on those backboards. If you do, and because around here we show up a lot to help when things are like bad. If I show up and your patient's on a backboard, I'm going to take them off of it and I'm going to throw it out of the back of my ambulance. I just did it the other day in freaking Eureka County when that semi truck went off in that ditch. We put the patient on the backboard, we got him out of the ditch, put him on the stretcher. I kicked open the back door of the ambulance and threw the backboard out of the back of the truck. That's about all I did for her, is listening to the phone call when they hit the ground. So
You go train psych patients with them too.
just don't do it face down.
Yeah, don't
For
do
the
it.
love of God, do not restrain somebody face down. That's a good way to end up in jail,
Yeah, it is.
if that's just what you're into.
So non-urgent moves, so no immediate life threat. These are the patients you got some time, right? So sometimes they can walk, sometimes you can assist them to the stretcher, get the stretcher right next to them. Try not to aggravate existing conditions. So these are the patients you got a little bit of room to kind of play with time-wise. Not everybody needs to be tossed on the backboard or carried out to the stretcher.
We'll do this a lot of times with like Granny that fell and broke her hip, because I want to take time to manage her pain before I move her. And I already know that I'm going to put her on the helicopter to send her out of here. So I have 45 minutes to an hour before the helicopter lands. I've got a little bit of time. So we'll leave her there. We'll start managing her pain, give her some pain meds, do all that before we start moving her, to try to make the process a little bit easier.
This thing here, I really wish that we could get this to be bigger so y'all can see a little better. This is a bariatric stretcher ambulance thing. So they literally have a winch that's inside the ambulance. So if somebody is too large and in charge for our stretchers, which our stretchers hold up like 750 pounds or something. So that's saying something. They pull out these stretchers. We don't have them around here. They had one in Atlanta. They never use it though.
I think they had one in Humboldt too for a little while. But I've only seen one of these used once. Big fella.
Yeah.
But it's legitimately a winch, like freaking, like
It's
a
a
truck
winch in
winch.
the ambulance. They hook it onto the stretcher and then there's these tracks and it just pulls the stretcher up into the
If you're using that, you're having a really bad day.
So I've seen, like, when these aren't available, I've seen a lady, she was every bit of 650 pounds. She coded. They took the stretcher out of the back of the ambulance. They didn't have like the tracks like we have. It was just like a regular back of an ambulance. And they just put her in the back of the ambulance. Not on a stretcher or anything. So there's ways around it. It's not fun for anybody involved.
We have used like backboard straps because we can't get the straps around them. And the little wings can't go up, so we've had to use like backboard straps to wrap through and connect people.
Yeah.
You learn how to MacGyver things.
Yeah.
You're having a bad day and your back hurts.
Yeah. This is that stair chair that everybody loves. So anytime on any stretcher or piece of equipment that we have, if something is red, like a lever or like a button or something, that means that it's going to make something on that device move. So whenever we pull out this stair chair, you'll see there's like a red wire right here. There's red like handles here. There's red little buttons right here. There's red everywhere. So each one of those red things make it do something else. Same thing with our stretcher. We have red handles. There's a red handle that makes the top of the bed go up and down, make the knees come up and down. Buttons make it go up and down. So anything that's red is going to make it move somehow. These are our mega movers. They're great. I love mega movers. So it's like a sheet. They got handles on it. They're reinforced so you can pick patients up.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think they're also rated for like 600 pounds.
Yeah.
So
Just depends on which one you get. Because one time we accidentally ordered ones that were only like this wide. There's nobody.
Yeah, we brought them out for a freaking like a 300-pound person, and we were like, ding. Frick, that's not gonna work.
Can we try putting these together?
Yeah.
Short spine boards, I've only ever used that once, and I think it was to like backboard a pediatric patient, backboard and things. So there's different types of stretchers. So the yellow and black ones, they're strikers. That's what we have here. These are called Infernos. They have like this X. Just how they load up into the ambulance is a little bit different. It's different services have different ones. Whether you like it or not is a preference thing. I don't think one's better than the other.
I've honestly never used a Furno stretcher. Everywhere I've always worked has always had the striker. And I think the main difference is like these front legs right here, like move down, and it just kind of like collapses in on itself as you're like pushing it in. where the stretchers that we have, just everything lifts up in place. So,
What's that one? Oh, that's the striker.
yeah, that's the one we have. That's an older model of the striker, but
And this is
Stokes basket.
Stokes basket. I almost said school refresher. This is Stokes basket. So you'll see this in like wilderness rescue. We have one on the side by side we have up here. So we used one to get a dude out of the second story of a apartment in Atlanta because we couldn't get our stretcher up there and there's no elevator and he had broken femur. So the fire department whipped out their little Stokes basket and we threw them in there so we could get them downstairs. They're nice whenever you need them. So if they have a suspected spinal injury, you need to immobilize the head, neck, and spine before moving them. Here's the thing. We'll talk about this more, but if somebody has a broken back or a broken neck, for example, if you break your arm and you're sitting here talking to me, how are you going to hold your arm? Are you going to be like, yep, my arm's broken? Are you going to do that? No, you're going to self-splint it, right? So if somebody has a broken neck or a broken back, they're going to self-splint it. So if you walk up and they're like, oh yeah, my neck hurts so bad, you think they need a seat cover? Probably not. Now if they're completely unconscious and you can't rule one out or another, to immobilize the spine rather than strapping them to a hard piece of plastic. So
The studies, the way that our stretchers are set up and the way the straps are set up are identical to the way the backboard straps are set up. And so if you immobilize them to the stretcher, you're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Because they have
and
the
if their
straps.
back is broken, the chances that you're gonna hear some like 80-year-old medic be like, yeah, one time I moved this guy's neck, I heard a pop, and then he died because his neck was broken and he wasn't dead before. There's no studies to back up any of that. So if someone's back is broken and they have a spinal cord injury, the damage is done before you even get there. You moving them 2 feet from the ground to the stretcher is not gonna exacerbate an injury. So,
You know,
again,
we
soapbox.
backwards.
Yeah.
I can show you studies that say that that makes injuries worse too. So,
Yeah. You just need to consider whenever somebody has a possible spinal injury that you don't want to be grossly moving them. So like, I'm not going to yank at their hips and pull them to the side like this. You don't want to do a lot of twisting. You want to be mindful, but we're not securing everybody to backboards. You'll see a cervical collar. We carry soft collars around here. We also have some hard collars we'll pull out for y'all. And then spine restriction. We have different devices for that. So we have the KED. Yeah, KED.
That's
Another thing. Never used one. I've been trained on it multiple times. They used to test you on it in the National Registry. You had to walk in and put somebody on one to pass your test. I've never used one. So,
Yeah, we'll bring them out. There's like it's like this long. It just goes down your back and you like strap their legs and strap their body and strap their head.
you basically immobilize their spine while they're in a sitting position rather than a backboard.
It's supposed to be used as like an extrication device from vehicles. So you can slide that thing in there behind them and then strap them all to it. That way you can move them out without. It's stupid. Nobody uses it, but it's still on our state check off, so we still carry one, but it's got a lot of dust on it.
So I just like to throw things in here kind of early, so whenever you see things multiple times, it kind of will stick in your brain a little better. So this is some of the criteria that we use whenever we want to like immobilize the spine on a patient of a suspected spinal injury. So it's called, you can use like the Nexus criteria. There's a bunch of criteria for it. So these are just, I'm not telling you to memorize this or this isn't gonna be on a test right now. I just want to kind of get this in your brain that there are criteria. So like if the patient's intoxicated, if they're altered at any point, if they don't know what's going on, if they have like a distracting injury, if their arm's ripped off, that's going to distract them from broken back. So those are things to all consider. Like I said, it's not going to be on like this test or anything, but I just want you guys to see things before we get to them. So, onto carrying devices from the ground. I've never picked up a patient like this personally. But, I mean, if that floats your boat.
I
The
just want to
extremity
see
lift.
you try to carry a patient like that without them falling. They're not
Like-
going to stay still like that.
Stick this boy, might as well. We do this one a lot though, moving them onto the hospital beds. We do that one a lot, so the sheet pull. Usually that's like a 4-person thing, can be done with 2-person thing, sometimes 1. You'll see it though. So these are terms in lingo. The medical terminology chapter in your book is like the shortest chapter. It's the shortest PowerPoint, but it's probably one of the most important. And I'm going to tell you this, and I'm going to give you handouts because what they cover in the book is very basic. Like this is how words are set up, and this is some medical terminology, but most of the medical terminology that you guys are going to need to know is going to be something that you do on your own study time. So we're going to give you resources, of course, but we're going to start throwing these medical terms at you, and that's where like you're taking a test and they'll be like, your patient has meiosis and he's laying supine or left lateral recumbent, and you're like, what do these words mean? Like that's what gets people on the test, is this medical terminology. So medical words in relation to how patients are positioned. So if they're on their back, it's supine because they're on their spine, right? Prone, they're on their nose. I remember that one. Fowlers, that's one you just gotta remember. Some doctor was like, I like this position, I'm gonna name it after myself. Let's call it Fowlers. So that's Fowlers, and Trendelenburg is with the head down. We don't do that anymore, really. They used to teach that, they were like, your patient's in shock, their blood pressure's low. They're all in Trendelenburg. That's not. They actually discovered that it does more damage than it does good because it puts all of the weight that's in their belly up on their diaphragm. So somebody that's really sick, that's probably having a hard time breathing because they're sick, probably not a good idea to crush their diaphragm. Probably not. There's another one called semi-Fowlers, which you might see. It looks like this. It's like half up. So Fowlers is all the way up. Semi-Fowlers is their head's back just a little bit. Those are the most common one when they're on the stretcher. Fowlers, semi-Fowlers, or supine. So you have right lateral recumbent. These are also called your recovery positions. So if you ever hear it referred to as a recovery position, that's what they're talking about, like a right lateral or left lateral recumbent. It's just wherever side they're laying on. So left lateral, they're laying on their left side, or right lateral, right side. I don't know why his hands like this. He said, Baker. Okay, so recovery position is great for like post-seizure patients. If you have a patient that you're not really that concerned about, like the C-spine stuff, if they're like vomiting, that's a fantastic way to clear an airway, because if they vomit and they're laying on their side, it's going to come out here rather than go back into their throat for them to aspirate on. If you have a patient that's laying on their back and you see them kind of start puking, roll them into a recovery position. So it takes a little bit to like set your suction up. Yes, you should have it kind of ready to go, but make sure you just roll because you want to keep that stuff out of the airway. She's puking. All right, so shock. You guys are going to become intimately familiar with this word, shock. Hypoperfusion, shock. If I had a dime for every time I've said this word in my tenure of EMS and teaching and learning, I would be a millionaire. So whenever we go down our sheets and we're treating for shock, this is a hypoperfused state. Your patient is dying for whatever reason. So we position for shock to treat for shock. You want to lay them supine because most of the time when they're in shock, their blood pressure is going to be low. So you're going to want to help them by laying them supine. The exception to this is if it's a neurogenic shock and they have a TBI and they have a lot of pressure building up in their brain. You don't want to lay them flat because pressure, right? You want to keep the pressure off their head. So that is the exception.
Would you put them in Fowlers and opposite?
I keep them just semi-Fowlers.
Semi-Fowlers?
Yeah.
At 30 degrees.
30 degrees.
30 degrees.
Statistically, 30 degrees is the best.
That's what they'll say on like every test question about it, is put their head to 30 degrees.
True.
And did you say hypoperfuse or hyperperfuse?
Hypo.
Hypo is low, hyper is high.
Yeah, so hypo, being low, perfused is like their blood getting to where it needs to go. Perfusion. So hypo, they have low perfusion. to everything. So that's what shock is hypoperfusion. So don't lower the head. We say that because we used to do that Trendelenburg thing for everybody that was in shock. We don't do that anymore. So don't lower the head, don't raise the legs, don't do that. Oh, questions, concerns, comments? That was a lot.
Is there ever a time that it would make sense to do Trendelenburg? Like if there's got like swelling or like severe swelling in the legs or something, or bleeding, then you gotta turn it.
I think since they kind of got rid of it in the shock algorithm, yeah, I don't know any time that it would,
Yeah,
Because all
they
you're
used
doing
to
is
teach it
pushing
like
it
if they are bleeding, you put them in Trendelenburg.
yeah.
But I don't think so. I'm sure there's one weird medical random thing that they're like, actually, they have a glioblastoma in their left ear hole. You put them in Trendelenburg, it'll help. But,
Study size was 3 people.
yeah, exactly.
So just remember, homework tomorrow, 4 and 17, 5 on Monday. Every Monday and Wednesday, you'll have the pretest due. I'll say it again too, just because that homework thing that y'all are seeing pop up doesn't mean anything. I just don't know how to get rid of it. Y'all shouldn't even be able to see it because I've got it turned off on my side, so I don't know where it's coming from. So don't stress about it. Don't worry about it. The only thing you got to worry about is the pretest. And please use that time to get into your books. I know we all have things going on in the world. I will tell you firsthand, right now is your time to learn and make mistakes. When you get out and you get a license and you're by yourself, that's not the time to make mistakes and learn. So do it now while you're in class, while you're with us. That way we can help you and make you better. Because when you get out by yourself and everybody's looking at you to be the one to save the world, you don't want to be the one that doesn't know what you're doing. Take this class and run with it and assume that the first emergency that you're ever going to have to see is your mom, dad, or your brother or whoever, and treat that as how you want to be whenever you get done with this class. So
we had a question from the south. Can you still hear me on that?
I don't know why I can't hear the sound.
I don't know either. I touched on it a little bit. They asked it, why don't we raise the legs for shock? So same kind of thing. Whenever we raise the legs, it brings gravity's a thing. So it's going to bring all the gravity of everything down here up onto your diaphragm. So whenever somebody is in shock, a lot of times they're going to be having trouble breathing anyways. I'd say like 95% of the time. You have someone that's in shock. Their respiratory is going to be compromised. So if you're putting all of the weight that's like in the belly up onto the diaphragm, they're not going to be able to get a deep enough breath. It's going to put more pressure on their respiratory system. So that's why we don't put their legs up anymore. So there's your answer. Good question.
all right. If y'all are good, are you good? False lady?
Yeah. I'm good.
If y'all don't have anything else for us, we'll see y'all Thursday, same time, same place. I'll try to figure out the schedule things. And then I'll try to figure out the Saturday thing for the CDR. I think everybody, I'm pretty sure I misspoke on that. I think everybody has to be there for the council. But I'll double check. Cool.
Cool.
Sweet.
Good work, team.
How is Pickup Henry